Hello my good friends, Jesse here. I hope you are ready for this topic, especially if you are a very religious person, as this video is going to be, well, probably the most devilish and satanic video I will ever make. And in this video I will help you come to the realization that the Digimon franchise has a bunch of demons, devils and just straight up Satanism that is both hidden but also heavily exposed. Up to a point I can safely say that the Digimon developers did not even try to hide it. Truth be told, the Digimon franchise might be the franchise with the most hints towards occultism and Satanism. That's why I am a little surprised that it never really got that much complaints or backlash, at least when I compare it to the Pokemon franchise, which was said to be very satanic. Just think about it. Pokemon was considered satanic by some religious groups in the late 1990s due to its supernatural elements, such as creatures with psychic powers, the concept of evolution, and the design of certain characters. Critics feared these aspects promoted occultism. Yet, Digimon does that literally to your face without even trying to hide it. There's a comment on X by someone named SamantuelBLM who wrote the following. Here I quote, "How come Pokemon was the one that got hit by satanic panic stuff when Digimon lets you befriend the devil and also evolve said devil into a sexy bondage woman devil?" Unquote. As much as I love Digimon, this claim is 100% right. And my whole channel is dedicated to Digimon, so I know what I'm talking about. Digimon has sexy nuns fighting. It has half-naked angels fighting, it has beautiful lady devils, and it even has dominatrix type of Digimon. And that's just to name you the very few of the many examples I can give. So what we are going to do is discuss my top 10 list of the most satanic Digimon that you can find in the Digimon franchise. I will make sure to go extremely detailed because the Digimon developers were very smart and were straight up geniuses in the use of the sources for their inspiration. So we need to be just as smart as them and trace the true roots of those demonic Digimon. That's why this video will be a long one, because I want you to truly understand how creative and yet how dark Digimon is. So please listen carefully. Watch it in parts if you must. I will put timestamps in the description box to make it easier for you. I hope my parents will never know about this video, because they would kidnap me to do emergency prayers and exorcism on me. For the effort, I hope you won't mind to help the channel out by subscribing and liking the video. It is shown that most of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and it would really mean the world for me. So please do a poor soul a favor, and let us now get into it. May you please excuse me, but as this subject will be quite demonic, I'd like to pray just a little bit for our safety. Dear Heavenly Father, as I speak today, I ask for your divine protection to surround every person listening. May your love shine upon them, filling their hearts with peace, understanding, and wisdom. Protect their minds from any negativity or confusion, and guard their spirits with your boundless grace. In your holy name, Amen. To be entirely honest with you, it was a difficult list to make because, for starters, there are too many demons and devil Digimon. Heck, there is even a Digimon that is literally based on Satan himself, as you will see in a moment. So the question is, how would we even start to make a top 10 video of the most satanic Digimon? I believe the best way is to first define what is understood with the word Satanism. What does it mean? Well, essentially it refers to a group of religious, ideological, or philosophical beliefs based on Satan. And because of the sometimes secretive nature of these communities, it's hard to tell who indulges in Satanism. But one thing is certain, there is a list of the many accusations associated to them. It goes from satanic ritual abuse, sometimes on children, human sacrifice, sometimes in the form of cannibalism, black magic and witchcraft, occult rituals and ceremonies to invoke dark powers, political and social control to push their satanic agenda, and there's much more. The main character in Satanism is Satan, obviously. It is the entity that is being worshipped and venerated. So if we know who or what Satan is and how communities have organized themselves to promote its will, then we have a way to make a top 10 list of the most demonic and satanic Digimon in existence. This means that the next question would be the following: who is Satan? Because there are so many different interpretations. You see, Satan is a figure that appears in various religious and mythological traditions, often portrayed as a being who embodies evil in opposition to God. And in Abrahamic religions, meaning Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Satan is typically depicted as a fallen angel who seeks to challenge divine authority and lead humanity astray. This is the simple version behind the entity, even if in reality it is much more complex. And this complexity will be shown in this top 10 list. But based on the concept behind Satan and the traditions, culture, and philosophy that can be found in Satanism and Occultism, I decided to make this top 10 list by taking into account what the Digimon truly represents, when looking at its name, when looking at its appearance, and when looking at its background story. I'm also going to consider the levels of powers they are at, as not all demons are created equal. Let us begin. The top 10 list will begin with SkullSatamon, who I will exceptionally put at the 11th spot, for reasons that will be clear at the end of the video. Its name says it all. It is called SkullSatamon, which literally means Skull Satan Monster. You see, SkullSatamon used to be an angel in the Digimon heaven. However, in its pursuit of strength and destruction, it fell to the dark area, which is the Digimon Multiverse's version of Hell. It is a cursed area where you will find other fallen angel Digimon, but also demon Digimon and evil spirit Digimon. When SkullSatamon fell from grace and became this fallen angel who inhabits Hell, it grew even more in wickedness, so that its dark powers became unfathomable. One of the most important reasons I have put it at the 11th spot is because it is a Digimon at the ultimate level. To those who are new to Digimon, you have to know that all Digimon are divided into multiple levels of power, which is made up of an egg, where they are born from, followed by 6 main evolutionary stages. The strongest are called Mega Level Digimon. SkullSatamon is an ultimate level Digimon, meaning that it technically is weaker than Mega Level Digimon, but stronger than all the other main evolutionary stages, meaning stronger than Fresh, In Training, Rookie, and Champion. This means that SkullSatamon is not in its prime, as after it fell from heaven, it gained this appearance that is a ruin of what it once was. After all, when you take the name into consideration, SkullSatamon is a digital incarnation of essentially the skeleton of Satan. Digimon who have the word skull in their front name are usually undead Digimon with no emotions and no intelligence, who often move based on primitive instincts. There are exceptions, but usually it is a sign that a Digimon completely lost it, as it is almost questionable if they even still have their sense of selves. And SkullSatamon represents a sort of defeated Satan who is far from being in its prime. In its pursuit of strength and destruction, it is likely it had gotten itself banished, hence the fall from grace. In its case, it is far from being the angel it once was, as it grew to become absolutely wicked. And speaking of angel, you see, on the one hand, there is Satan, who SkullSatamon is based on. But on the other hand, there is also the angel Lucifer. Lucifer was originally considered an archangel often associated with light and illumination, and in Christian tradition he was an angel of great beauty and power. However, according to some interpretations of biblical texts, his pride led him to rebel against God, which resulted in his fall from heaven. After his rebellion, Lucifer became identified with Satan, but here is the problem. While in popular culture and some Christian teachings, Lucifer and Satan are often considered the same entity, there are theological and even scriptural arguments that highlight the distinctions between the two figures. Let's take some passages from the Bible to help you understand why the two are sometimes seen as separate entities. In Christian tradition, Lucifer is often depicted as an angel who fell from grace due to pride and rebellion against God. This fall is commonly associated with the idea of Lucifer's pride and desire to be like God, as found in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. While Satan is also a figure of rebellion, his role is more associated with temptation, opposition to God's will, and the corruption of humanity, as seen in the story of the fall of man in Genesis 3. Meaning that Lucifer's connection to light and his fall due to pride differs from Satan's role as an accuser and tempter of humanity. The truth is that when it comes to the Digimon franchise, you won't have to bother much, as the Digimon developers have decided to separate the two. There is SkullSatamon, who represents the skull of Satan, or who represents a weaker version of Satan, and there's also a Digimon version of Lucifer. To make a quick summary, as SkullSatamon represents a weakened version of Satan by literally representing his skeleton, and also by being a demon at the ultimate level, it is a Digimon that is not yet what it is meant to become, as it technically is in its weakened version. That's why I believe that the 11th spot is most appropriate for it, but we're going to get back to it as I'm not done yet. At the 10th spot, I have put Leviamon, who has been nicknamed the Abyss of Despair. I've placed it on this spot in the list because when you look at its appearance, it is easy to miss what this Digimon truly embodies. I mean, it doesn't look like a demon and it doesn't have special occult markings anywhere. At first glance, many would believe they are looking at a crocodile type of creature, which in a way is not wrong. However, the truth is that this Digimon embodies so much more, and I'm going to dissect it piece by piece. You see, Leviamon is a member of the 7 Great Demon Lords. They are the chief nobility of the Dark Area. Their main goals are to either conquer the digital world or destroy it by any means necessary. And to bring their goal to fruition, instead of being individually already very powerful, each member has the right to command legions of demons. We have an actual number of how many they can command. We're going to get to that in a moment. The entire concept behind the 7 Demon Lords within the Digimon franchise came from modern occultism, who also have 7 Demon Lords, otherwise called the 7 Archdemons. They are figures that represent various aspects of human nature, often symbolizing traits that are typically considered sinful or negative in conventional religions. Each demon corresponds to one of the 7 deadly sins, and Leviamon represents the sin of envy. Envy being the feeling of resentment or jealousy toward someone else's qualities, achievements, or possessions. It occurs when we desire what others have and feel unhappy or inferior as a result. And this sin is quite appropriate for Leviamon. Let me tell you why. You see, Leviamon is said to sleep deep in the net ocean. In fact, so deep that it finds itself near the dark area. If awoken, it will look down on any Digimon in positions of might, causing angel Digimon to flee in terror, along with other Digimon. That's why it is said that it builds the foundation for the existence of wickedness in the digital world. Now, what makes this Digimon so satanic, I can hear you ask? Well, each Demon Lord is associated with a corresponding crest that is displayed in one of the 7 colors of the visible spectrum. This crest depicts a sigil of one of the 7 Olympian spirits along with other important details of what the associated Demon Lord represents. We're going to get over the details in a moment. Let me first tell you more about these 7 Olympian spirits whose sigil got associated with a Demon Lord. That way, I won't have to repeat it once we get higher on the list. The Olympian spirits refer to 7 spirits who rule a set number of provinces that make up the entirety of the universe. Some of them command legions of spirits. One can argue that the Olympian spirits themselves can already be deemed as satanic as they come from written sources that are relatively obscure. They were mentioned in several Renaissance and post-Renaissance books of ritual and ceremonial magic. These are books of spells where one can learn how to create magical objects like talismans and amulets. One can learn how to perform magical spells, charms and divination, and also learn how to summon or invoke supernatural entities such as angels, spirits, deities, and even demons. And in the book called Our Battle of Magic, it is said that the Olympian spirits inhabit in the firmament and in the stars of the firmament. And the office of these spirits is to declare destinies and to administer fatal charms so far forth as God pleaseth to permit them. Speaking of stars, the Olympian spirits play a significant role in planetary magic, where different spirits are called upon based on their specific planetary association to create desired outcomes in a person's life. And because of it, Leviamon and the other demon lords have also planets that they are associated with. All the information and more can be found on a demon lord's crest, which is an adjusted version of the sigil of an Olympian spirit. Meaning that at the moment we get a full grasp of all that is written in a crest, we would also understand most, if not the entirety of the discussed demon lord. So, to return to Leviamon, its seal is based on that of the Olympian spirit called Ophiel, the spirit who represents the planet Mercury, and you can find the symbol of the planet on the upper end of Leviamon's crest. Ophiel commands 100,000 legions of spirits, which is probably the same amount of demons Leviamon would be able to command. Within the space between the two concentric circles lies various texts. Among the texts, you have one that states level. This is 666 for all the crests associated to a demon lord. And the number 666 is a reference to the number of the beast. It is commonly associated with Satanism due to its depiction in the Bible, specifically in the book of Revelation, where it is referred to as the number of the beast. In Christian theology, this number has been linked to evil, the Antichrist, and apocalyptic imagery. Over time, it has become a symbol of opposition to God and is often associated with Satan and dark forces. In each demon lord's crest, you can also see the word system written inside. This refers to the demon that traditionally represents the demon lord's respective sin. In Leviamon's case, we would be talking about the sea serpent demon Leviathan, an embodiment of chaos who threatens to eat the damned when their lives are over. The Leviathan has been associated with the deadly sin of envy, and, as a consequence, Leviamon became a representative of the sin of envy, which you can also find being written on its crest. Many may not know, but the Leviathan has been used a lot in occultism. That's why I already warned you that Leviamon is quite the demonic character, because its roots are quite dark. I don't know if you have ever heard of the Satanic Bible. It is a religious text written by Anton LaVey and was published in 1969. The book outlines the philosophy and practices of Satanism, including the rejection of conventional religious and moral dogma. It encourages rational self-determination, indulgence, and embracing human nature while critiquing societal norms and traditional religious values. The Satanic Bible is divided into 4 sections: the Book of Satan, the Book of Lucifer, the Book of Belial, and the Book of Leviathan, each representing different aspects of the philosophy. Mind you that the Satanic Bible made a distinction between Lucifer and Satan. Anyway, the Book of Leviathan in the Satanic Bible focuses on the power of spoken words and emotions in magic. It includes invocations for different rituals, like invoking Satan for power, lust for attraction, destruction for harm, and compassion for healing. This book would then have been dedicated to Leviamon. We can argue that the Book of Satan would have been dedicated to SkullSatamon. However, due to Satan having multiple representatives in Digimon, this book specifically will likely be dedicated to multiple Digimon, as will be clear in this video. For your information, the Satanic Bible is used in the Church of Satan. We're talking about a religious organization dedicated to the religion of Satanism and who initially was found in San Francisco in 1966. It is the oldest satanic religion in continual existence and, more importantly, the most influential, inspiring numerous imitators and breakaway groups. In this church you can find the sigil of a figure called Baphomet. It is a sigil representing the material world, carnality and earthly principles. I am telling you this because Hebrew letters have been used at each of the points of this sigil to represent Leviathan. Starting from the lowest point of the pentagram and reading counterclockwise, the word reads Hebrew for Leviathan. So to have the name of the Leviathan written on a sigil which shows a picture of Baphomet, a creature used in occultism and satanic practices, and that same name of the Leviathan creature has been used as a source for the creation of Leviamon, says enough. That's why I say that Digimon used a lot of inspiration from satanic sources and they went really far. We're going to finish Leviamon's analysis by having one last look at its crest, as there is one aspect we haven't discussed yet. At the bottom of the inner circle lies a text which specifies a quotient for a purgatory level ranging between 1 and 7. The level corresponds to a level in purgatory. Purgatory being a mountain which in many sources is the equivalent of hell, with 7 terraces, each representing one of the 7 deadly sins. Souls in purgatory undergo purification through penance and suffering to cleanse themselves before ascending to paradise if they ever make it. Leviamon has the number 2 on its crest, meaning that it would reside and likely rule over the 2nd terrace in hell. This terrace is filled with the souls of envious penitents. In life, they were consumed by jealousy, longing for the happiness or successes of others, even to the point of causing harm to deprive others of their joy. The penitents wear grey cloaks and their eyes are soon shut with iron wire, blinding them as part of their penance. So, this was the complete background story of Leviamon, where we took a look at everything that was used to come up with this Digimon. It goes very far and very deep. Maybe a quick little summary. Leviamon has gotten the 10th spot because, appearance-wise, it is easy to overlook what it truly represents. However, with our analysis, we learned that it embodies the sin of envy. It represents the demon sea serpent Leviathan, who has a whole book dedicated to it in the Satanic Bible. It also represents the 2nd floor in purgatory, so it's really pretty demonic to say the least. Yet we are only at the 10th spot. Let us get to the 9th spot. At the 9th spot, I have put Beelzemon, who has been nicknamed the Dualist of Finality. It has reached this spot as, just like Leviamon, there isn't really something demonic when looking at its appearance. After all, it looks like a humanoid Digimon with an attire similar to that of a human biker. But again, the appearance is just that, an appearance. It doesn't always say much about what you embody or represent. And the irony with Beelzemon is that it is a very popular Digimon who has been quite exposed to many, yet I don't think many really realize what it truly embodies. I don't know if you know about the YouTube channel called Watch Mojo. They have over 25 million subscribers and had ranked Beelzemon as the 2nd most popular Digimon, so it's very high on the list. Regardless whether you agree of that ranking or not, the fact remains that we're talking about a popular Digimon whose true background story went completely overlooked, and in many of its portrayals, from the anime to even the games it appeared in, its background story is usually not even mentioned. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dissect everything. Beelzemon is a valuable member of the 7 Demon Lords and possesses the power to preside over the many devil and demonic Digimon. In fact, it is even said that it could stand at the peak of the Dark Army if it cared to. To get a hint of the amount of demons it should be able to control, we're going to analyze its crest, the same way we did with Leviamon. That way we'd also get a better image of Beelzemon's demonic background. Its crest is entirely based on the Olympian spirit named Hagith, who represents the planet Venus and who commands 4,000 legions of spirits. This is likely the same amount of demons Beelzemon should be able to control, as it is itself a representation of Hagith through its sigil and through the planet Venus, whose symbol can also be found in the upper circle of the crest. The number of the beast, the number 666, can be retrieved once more, showing us that Beelzemon effectively is a demon lord. The crest also shows the name Beelzebub in the part of system. That is because Beelzebub, otherwise known as the Lord of Flies, is the demon Beelzemon is entirely based on. And Beelzebub is a bit of a contradiction, as its name has often been used as a synonym for Satan. It's just that, unless I'm reading it wrong, but even Jesus made a distinction between the two. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 25 till 28, Jesus said the following: "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then can his kingdom stand? And if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your people drive them out?" Unquote. It is likely that Christian tradition merged Beelzebub with Satan, making them nearly synonymous. However, in some demonology traditions, Beelzebub is considered a major and high-ranking demon separate from Satan. The Digimon franchise went with that idea by separating both of them and treat them as separate beings. Down through history, Beelzebub has been held responsible for many cases of demonic possessions. The best example came from a series of alleged cases of demonic possessions in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France. Father Louis Gaufridi was accused and convicted of causing the possession by a pact with Beelzebub. He was tortured by strapado, which dislocated his bones, and he was then executed by strangulation, and his body was burned afterwards. To give you more details about Beelzebub, according to the stories of the 16th century occultist Johann Weyer, Beelzebub led a successful revolt against the devil and is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer. So it almost sounds like some sort of civil war that happened in hell. And you know what? In the various Digimon stories there are, sometimes the demon lords tend to be fighting amongst themselves, but that's a relatively rare occurrence. In demonology, the demon Beelzebub is seen as one of the 7 demon lords and represents the deadly sin of gluttony, the same sin you can find on Beelzemon's crest, next to code. And gluttony means the excessive consumption of food, drink, or material things to the point of waste or indulgence. It is considered one of the 7 deadly sins in Christian tradition because it reflects a lack of self-control and an over-attachment to physical pleasures, often leading to neglect of spiritual or moral responsibilities. That's why Beelzemon's purgatory level is that of Terrace 6. This terrace holds the souls of the gluttonous, suffering a punishment meant to mirror their earthly indulgences. In that terrace, they are tormented by intense hunger and thirst, surrounded by trees bearing fruit that they can see but never reach. I am almost done going over Beelzemon. There is one more thing I need to highlight. You see, it is sometimes seen riding a gigantic motorcycle-type machine that is called Behemoth. Now, Behemoth is in fact a beast which has been described in the Bible. In the biblical book of Job, the creature is a form of the primeval chaos monster created by God at the beginning of creation. It is depicted as a massive land-dwelling beast with immense strength, a powerful belly, and a tail like a cedar tree. The passage emphasizes its unshakable nature, suggesting that it is one of God's greatest creations, so mighty that only its maker can challenge it. The Behemoth, who is an earth creature, has quite often been paired with the Leviathan, who is a sea creature. And Both are seen as these unstoppable monsters that humans could never hope to defeat. In the Dictionnaire Infernal, which is a book on demonology describing demons organized in hierarchies, Behemoth is a demon that resembles a round-bellied humanoid elephant. He works as the infernal watchman for Satan and oversees the banquets in hell while having a good singing voice. And Beelzemon's bike was given its name. So this is the entirety of its background story. I believe I have touched upon all of the sources that was used to make this Digimon. Actually, no, I didn't include the fact that its guns were in fact forged by a Digimon named Volcanusmon, who is based on the Roman god of fire, metalwork, and the forge named Vulcan. However, as we are talking about demons and devils, there is no point in stopping on this aspect. We can always do that in another video. But I'd say that I am very impressed of all the sources that were used to build Beelzemon. There is a lot that went under the radar because the Digimon developers have been very discreet. All of the sources are hidden behind the Digimon with the appearance of a biker. I'm wondering if Beelzemon would still be as popular if people were to really know what it embodies. Let us get to the 8th spot. At the 8th spot came Lillithmon. It is a character with an immense big background story and one of the few characters who had an impressive fall from grace. But for that, I will have to tell you more about its previous life, which began as the angel Ophanimon. You see, Ophanimon is one of the 3 celestial Digimon who are the highest in the Digimon angelic hierarchy. They are the angels closest to God and serve their Lord by fulfilling their God-given tasks. We did talk about their entire story in a separate video. I will put the link towards it in the description box. Ophanimon, as one of the celestial Digimon, was deemed as the holy mother-like angel who imparts the loving and merciful side of God. When I say that it is a holy mother-like angel, it means that it is placed at the level of the Virgin Marie in Christianity. Marie being the mother of Jesus Christ, and her role is seen as one of compassion, purity, and intercession, and Ophanimon can be seen as its digital reincarnation. However, there is more to Ophanimon. It isn't only the digital reincarnation of the Holy Mother. Being the imparter of the loving and merciful side of God also means that it draws its roots from the mythological archangel Raphael, one of the 7 archangels in Judeo-Christian tradition, often associated with healing, guidance, and protection. He is often invoked for physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. That's why the name Raphael means God heals in Hebrew, reflecting his role as a divine healer and helper to those in need. So, Ophanimon embodies both the Holy Mother Marie and the Archangel Raphael, making it raise up the ranks of the most divine Digimon in existence. And its 10 golden wings also tell that it belongs to the more powerful angels, as the amount of wings define an angel's rank in the angelic hierarchy. But despite its divinity and despite its powers, Ophanimon has taught us that even angels can end up being corrupted, either by outside forces or by itself. I say that because there is a particular Ophanimon who was little by little being corrupted and ended up starting its fall down to hell. Let me introduce you to Ophanimon fall down mode. It is an alternate version of an Ophanimon that was swelled with anger at the world, where atrocious sins kept mounting no matter how many times they were purged. It grew so angry that it suppressed its own emotions, closed off its heart, and fell into madness. The angrier it got, the more it went the opposite direction of the purpose God had given it, as it decided to become its own judge, hunting whichever opponent it believed to have obstructed justice in the hopes of establishing a world of what it recognized as just. It is safe to assume that the more it hunted down those it deemed as obstructors of justice, the more it performed actions that were opposite to what it was meant to do or even what it embodied, meaning love and mercy. Staying for too long in its fall-down mode ultimately made it become Lillithmon, a demon lord who earned itself the title of goddess of darkness, as it offers generosity towards vice and cruel outrages towards virtue. In many ways, it became the opposite of what Baphomet represented. Lillithmon's outrage towards virtue reached a point where it even developed a move named Nazar Nail. It's a technique that corrodes everything it touches with the mystic claw. It's not the technique that should be focused on though, but the name. Nazar means the evil eye. It is the belief in a curse brought about by a malevolent glare, usually inspired by envy. Those who are victim of it can have bad luck, misfortune, illness, and sometimes even death. That's why in the Arab culture, saying the phrase MashaAllah, meaning God has willed it, alongside compliments, prevents the compliment from attracting the evil eye. And in many cultures around the world, amulets and charms are used to protect against it. But this means that Lillithmon, who was once a high-ranking angel, an Ophanim angel who imparted the loving and merciful side of God, became this demon who directly wishes you all the misfortune and all the bad luck you can get. And truth be told, there is way more bad luck that awaits you regardless of this move. To give you a full grasp of what I mean, let us analyze Lillithmon's crest, which is based on the sigil of the Olympian spirit named Fu, the spirit who rules over 7 provinces and who is the lord of the powers of the moon. We can find the symbol of the moon on Lillithmon's crest at the upper end of the circle. The crest shows that Lillithmon represents the demon Asmodeus. It is a powerful demon who commands 72 legions of demons. This should be the amount of demons Lillithmon itself can command. Asmodeus' origins trace back to ancient Persian and Jewish demonology. Later, he would be depicted as one of the 7 princes of hell. In medieval demonology, he is sometimes considered a king or prince among demons, possessing immense knowledge, particularly about hidden treasure and architecture. But it is also linked to temptation and corruption, often appearing as a deceiver who manipulates humans into indulging in forbidden pleasures. That's why Asmodeus is linked to the deadly sin of lust, which is the intense and uncontrolled desire often associated with sexual craving but also extending to power, wealth, or pleasure. In many religious and philosophical traditions, lust is considered a sin or moral failing because it can lead to destructive behavior, obsession, and the neglect of higher virtues like love, self-control, and wisdom. That's why lust is often linked to impurity and spiritual corruption, which explains why Christianity and Islam discourage all to fall for this sin, as it is a distraction from righteousness and devotion to God. Being a representative of the sin of lust explains why Lillithmon has a technique called Darkness Love, a move where it disrupts an opponent's mind with a lustful aura, meaning that it attempts to distract or destabilize them using attraction, desire, or seductive energy. In a metaphorical or psychological sense, it might mean using charm, allure, or sexual energy to cloud their judgment, making them more vulnerable or less focused on the task at hand. It is of no surprise that Lillithmon's crest tells that it represents the 7th level in purgatory. It is the final terrace, which exists specifically for the lustful, where the penitent souls must pass through a towering wall of flames. While Lillithmon is based on the demon Asmodeus, it is also based on a woman named Lilith, a very contradicting character to say the least. You see, according to Jewish folklore, Lilith was Adam's first wife, created from the same earth as him, making them equals. However, she refused to be subservient, particularly in their relationship, and demanded equality. When Adam insisted on dominance, Lilith left Eden rather than submit. And it is said that it was after her departure that the woman Eve was created from Adam's rib symbolizing a more submissive partner. Lilith was said to have fled to the Red Sea, where she consorted with demons and became a mother of monsters. In fact, it is said that she married Satan, mated with it, and gave birth to a host of demons. That's why many theistic Satanists consider Lilith a goddess because of her association with Satan. She is considered a goddess of independence by those Satanists and is often worshipped by women, among others. I have given the 8th spot to Lillithmon because it is quite easy to also overlook what it truly embodies. The first thing people will notice is an attractive woman with a blessed physique. They will not notice that it has a demonic or rather a satanic edge that, in my opinion, surpasses many in the entirety of the franchise. Heck, in the manga it even has this technique called Empress Emblaze, where it summons an eldritch hand-shaped monstrosity. From the looks of it, only a demon would be able to summon something so grotesque. So when we consider the entirety behind Lillithmon's background and the inspiration that was used to come up with this character, it definitely deserves its spot in this video. Let us now get to the 7th spot. At the 7th spot we have Belphemon, a demon lord Digimon who is said to have been sealed in the deepest part of the dark area. The sealing happened by the digital world system because the strength it possesses was too immense. That's why it has been put into this sleep mode and thereby cannot unleash its own attacks. Let us analyze its crest like we have done for previous demon lords. That way we will get a solid grasp of its background, even if there is way more that I will reveal about Belphemon, way more than is shown in its crest. Its crest is based on the seal of the Olympian spirit called Phaleg, who is also nicknamed the Warlord. And as we're going to progress with Belphemon, you will understand why the term Warlord suits it also quite well. Phaleg is a spirit who rules 35 provinces and governs the things that are attributed to the planet Mars. And you can find the symbol of Mars on Belphemon's crest at the upper end of the circle. It is the same symbol we use to identify a male. To continue with the crest, next to the level 666 you have System, in which is written the name Belphegor, who is the demon from which Belphemon is derived from. You see, according to religious tradition, Belphegor helps people make discoveries. He seduces people by proposing incredible inventions that will make them rich. However, don't get it twisted, it tempts through laziness. It would probably say something like the following, and I quote, "I never understood why laziness is considered a sin. Laziness is normal to have. Do you know something that, in my opinion, should be considered a sin? Stupidity. Stupidity should be a sin because stupid people, not even Satan, can stand for them. Seriously, Satanel would rather deal with the murderers than the guys who believe the earth is flat or that vaccines cause autism." Unquote. By leading those who invoke him down the path of failure, Belphegor tempts them into procrastination and idle daydreaming rather than productive action, ultimately condemning them all. That's why he is the main demon for the deadly sin known as sloth in the Christian tradition. That's why Belphemon itself is also the representative of the sin of sloth, which you can see written in his crest. The sin of sloth refers to laziness, apathy, or a lack of care in fulfilling one's duties, whether spiritual, moral, or practical. It's not just about being physically lazy, but also about neglecting responsibilities, avoiding effort, and failing to use one's talents or opportunities. It's also about being indifferent to God, prayer, or one's faith. It's about avoiding work, lacking motivation, and refusing to improve oneself. Being the representative of sloth gave Belphemon lordship over Terras 4 in Purgatory. It is the Terras which holds the souls of those who were slothful during their earthly lives. The slothful are forever preoccupied with running around the terrace without rest, since they lacked zeal in their lives, especially in matters of love and duty. And zeal is the opposite of sloth, for your information. Being a representative of the sin of sloth explains why Belphemon has this sleep mode, because in a way it is telling that despite being so powerful, in fact it even is one of the more powerful members among the 7 demon lords, at least in terms of raw power, still it is sleeping most of the time. However, the Digimon franchise has been so kind to show us how Belphemon would look like if it decides to wake up and unleash the entirety of its power. But for that I will have to give you a bit of a context first. What many may not know about Belphemon is that it wasn't only based on the demon Belphegor. It was also, and in fact mostly, based on a being which, the way I understand it, surpasses by far the powers of the demon Belphegor and many other demons. Belphemon's appearance and strength is de facto based more on the second beast as described in the book of Revelation in chapter 13 verse 11 till 18. This beast came out of the earth and has an appearance that is not described entirely other than having 2 horns like a lamb. When you look at Belphemon's horns, you'll see that the description fits. It is the only demon lord with horns of that style. Being based on one of the beasts of Revelation, specifically the one who came out of the earth, tells how powerful Belphemon would technically be, as, in terms of raw, apocalyptic danger, the beasts of Revelation are generally considered more dangerous than demons because they symbolize the end of the world and the ultimate conflict between good and evil. So that's why, when Belphemon wakes up from its slumber, which happens once in 1,000 years, it regains its natural shape and changes into an incarnation of rage. Digimon at the ultimate level or lower who hear its roar will face instant death from data fragmentation, and not even Mega Digimon can escape unharmed. That's how it earned itself the nickname Roar of Awakening. And mind you that those who die by it won't get reincarnated in a Digi-Egg, but instead will go straight to the dark area to act as flesh and blood for evil kings. Here is something important to know about Belphemon before we go to the 6th spot in the top 10 list. So, as I said, Belphemon is partially based on the second beast of Revelations. It's just that it represents mostly the raw power of that beast and not its intellect. What do I mean by that? Hear me out. The beasts of Revelation have apocalyptic powers that demons should technically not possess, or at least not to that extent. After all, these 3 beasts represent the ultimate evil of the end times. However, the second beast from which Belphemon is derived from is more than just one who has impressive physical strength. When we get back to the verse of Revelation where it has been described, it is said that the second beast has 2 horns like a lamb, but also speaks as a dragon. This indicates that the beast has the intelligence to speak deceitful, harsh, and evil things. He will speak like Satan, who is said to appear as the dragon in end times, and the dragon is the final beast of Revelation. The second beast is the one that is considered to be the false prophet. A false prophet is a person who falsely claims the gift of prophecy or divine inspiration, or to speak for God, or who makes such claims but for evil ends. And the second beast of Revelation, who is revealed to be the false prophet, is so good with words and manipulation that it became the one who caused people to receive the mark of the beast on their right hand or forehead. Belphemon is not known to be cunning or intelligent, so it is far too unlikely that it will be capable of causing people to sport the mark of the beast somewhere on their bodies. However, Belphemon is not the only Digimon that is based on the second beast of Revelation. there is another Digimon who will be revealed a bit later in this top 10 list, who effectively is the embodiment of the false prophet and thus the one who will spread the mark of the beast. If you know about the Digimon franchise, then you really don't have to look too far to know who the other digital reincarnation of the second beast is. A small hint, just look at the symbol on Belphemon's chest, or look at Lillithmon's black mark on his forehead, or even the mark on SkullSatamon's forehead. The same mark returns, and it looks like a bat. Can you guess what I'm talking about? We are going to get to that in a moment. For now, let us get to the 6th spot in this top 10 list. At the 6th spot, we have Demon Lord Barbamon. I will admit that the rank I gave it might have been influenced by my personal preference, as Barbamon has to be my favorite Demon Lord. But we have to give credit where credit is due. Sure, it doesn't look like a demon, like let us say Belphemon. However, what it does not have in looks, it certainly does compensate in accomplishments. What makes Barbamon so demonic is its accomplishments across the stories it has been featured in. So what we're going to do is take a look at its background first, and then we'll go to what it actually did to make it earn this spot in the top 10 list. Let us take a look at its crest. Barbamon's crest is based on the sigil of Olympian spirit Aratron, whose planet is that of Saturn, with its symbol that you can find on the upper end of Barbamon's crest. Aratron is the most influential Olympian spirit as it rules over 49 provinces, which is the most amount of provinces under the command of an Olympian spirit. And it commands 17,640,000 spirits. This would mean that Barbamon should be able to rule over most legions of devils and demons, and might even occupy most of the terrains in the dark area. And it would make sense. Let me tell you why. You see, as a member of the 7 Demon Lords, Barbamon isn't recognized for its strength per se. It is recognized for its strategic and manipulative traits. It is obsessed with treasure which exists within the network, and so, out of avarice and regardless of the means, it has a cruel personality with a greed that would kill Digimon just for a piece of that treasure. Because it knows to use words and various means to manipulate until it gets what it wants, it explains why the Olympian spirit who it represents, meaning Aratron, is the one spirit who controls most legions of spirits and governs most provinces. Let us take another look at Barbamon's crest, as there is still some important information that we have to extract from it before talking about its accomplishments. The system that defines the entire nature of Barbamon is named Mammon, one of the 7 princes of hell. And Mammon, you can argue that it might be more a concept than it is a demon. You see, in the New Testament, the word Mammon is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or any entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. Not that there is anything wrong with the pursuit of wealth and riches, however, the danger is that it can lead to moral corruption. In Matthew chapter 6 verse 24, for example, is written that no one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So, in short, Mammon became a figure representing the temptation of material wealth, and that's why it is associated with the sin of greed, which is also known as the sin of avarice. We're talking about an excessive desire for material wealth or possessions beyond what one needs or deserves. It is a form of self-centeredness where a person becomes consumed with acquiring more, often at the expense of others' well-being or ethical considerations. The sin of greed involves placing an unhealthy emphasis on wealth and material goods, believing that possessing more will bring happiness, power, or fulfillment. This is what leads to selfish behaviors such as hoarding resources, exploiting others, or prioritizing personal gain over compassion or fairness. That's why Barbamon's purgatory level is that of level 5. It is the terrace where souls are punished for their excessive desire for wealth, whether through greed or wastefulness. The souls lie face down on the ground, their hands and feet bound, symbolizing their need to be purged of earthly attachments. And speaking of purgatory, you see, Barbamon has a technique called Pandemonium Lost. It is a move where it unleashes all of the dark area's evil energies at once as an extremely high temperature explosion that burns up everything without a trace. The word Pandemonium is meant to refer to the high capital of Satan and his peers. It's a capital that was built by the fallen angels at the suggestion of Mammon. The demons built it in about an hour, but it far surpassed all human palaces or dwellings. It was probably quite small, however, as its spacious hall is described as being very crowded within the thronging swarm of demons who were taller than any human man. While Barbamon's nature is based around Mammon, there is another entity, in fact a demon, who also had a profound influence on Barbamon's nature. I'm talking about Barbatos, a demon who holds the rank of Duke and who once belonged to the angelic order of virtues. We can say that Barbamon has its skills from this spirit, who can grant the ability to all to understand the spoken language of animals, such as the singing of birds and the barking of dogs. Barbatos can reveal hidden treasure that have been concealed by the enchantment of magicians. He can give knowledge of past and future events and can reconcile disputes between friends and those who hold power. Now that that's said, let us now take a look at Barbamon's accomplishments, which will tell you why I decided to put it this high on the list. You see, it's not just about looking like a demon, it's also about what that demon has done. Barbamon has displayed the ability to sway other Digimon that were angels and also God-type Digimon. For example, in the manga Digimon Next, it had managed to manipulate a Magna Angemon who was in charge of protecting the system world. Let me briefly tell you the story. Magna Angemon had a strong desire to protect artificial Digimon. These are Digimon that were created by humans via the virtual pets. These Digimon are unable to survive once they are abandoned by their tamers. The artificial Digimon called Chibimon, which it protected, ended up dying, and Barbamon made Magna Angemon grow a certain dislike towards human. This hatred was used as leverage to make it transform into Mephismon. And the difference between Magna Angemon and Mephismon is just as striking as Ophanimon and Lillithmon. You see, Magna Angemon is an angel with 8 wings whose general main mission is to supervise and survey the many angel Digimon as a priest and as a law enforcer. Mephismon is a Magna Angemon who fell from grace and who became a member of the ruling class in Hell, managing 30 legions of demons. What's important to know is that Mephismon is based on the demon Murmur, who also commands 30 legions of demons. This demon can oblige the souls of the deceased to appear before the conjurer to answer every desired question. Interestingly, Murmur is depicted as a soldier who rides a griffin, and Mephismon is also riding a griffin, who is called Griffinmon. So I'd say that it is a perfect Digimon depiction of the demon. Barbamon has also been capable of manipulating Ghoulmon, a mega-level demon lord Digimon who was originally a high-ranking angel. It fell from grace and gained itself the title of Three-Eyed God of Destruction. Too bad that the Digimon franchise did not give us a Digimon that would represent its angelic part. However, what can be said is that Ghoulmon, otherwise called Deathmon, is based on the Archangel Samael, a fallen angel sometimes considered an angel of death, overseeing the process of soul transition from life to death. He is often seen as a figure who balances both creation and destruction, playing a role in God's divine judgment. In Kabbalistic interpretations, Samael's eyes are seen as representing divine judgment and the ability to see the truth of the world. His eyes symbolize a heightened vision or awareness that goes beyond ordinary human perception, seeing the hidden aspects of existence, both light and darkness. That's the reason why Ghoulmon, or Deathmon as I prefer to call it, has these many eyes. It used to be the Archangel Samael, who might have been digitally reincarnated into a Digimon named Samaelmon. However, the Digimon developers never gave us the chance to see this Digimon. That's why the picture I showed you is just a fan art. A final example of Barbamon's cunningness is how it managed to challenge authority and work its way all the way to absorbing the body of the host computer of the digital world. It's a story that also happened in the manga Digimon Next. Barbamon had a discussion with Yggdrasil, the host computer, who agreed with Barbamon's arguments, hence why both fused, making of Barbamon a god of the digital world. So, while Barbamon may not exactly look like a demon, still, it has managed to accomplish what basically all demons would love to accomplish. Its cunning nature allowed it to manipulate all kinds of powerful angels and even god-level digital beings. It did not do the manipulation with strength, but with pure intelligence. That's why it is my favorite demon lord, to be honest. It has a lot of results to back up its reputation. And you know what? While there is lots that Barbamon can do on its own, still, when the situation gets tense, it understood that sometimes it is best to collaborate with other Digimon. We have already discussed most of the Digimon it works with, but we have yet to discuss two of its other fellow demon lords. We have come to the fifth spot, and I'd say that from now on, the Digimon who will be shown certainly could be categorized as the most satanic Digimon out there, because not only will their background story become darker, but also their appearance will show a lot of markings that are used in occultism. You should normally be able to immediately tell that we're talking about a satanic Digimon. However, don't forget that this top 10 list isn't just based on a Digimon's appearance. Now, in the fifth spot I have put Mephismon, and boy, this one has got to be one of the most satanic Digimon in the franchise for way too many reasons. And it's funny because all Digimon we have discussed so far, aside of SkullSatamon, are at the Mega level. This one is at the Ultimate level, and isn't a member of the 7 Great Demon Lords. Yet, when you consider everything that it represents, it has a lot of reasons to be placed this high, and I was even hesitating to push it higher. Mephismon is a dark being whose governing principle is the extermination of all life. Its way of thinking came from Occultism, as Mephismon is said to be born from its thought data. And Occultism is itself a powerful entity who surpasses by far the average mega-level Digimon. It was born when negative thoughts were drawn together by darkness. Occultism is a manifestation of evil and also a manifestation of the apocalypse, a catastrophic event, or in fact a series of events that led to the end of the world or significant societal collapses. And Mephismon, as it is a reincarnation of Occultism, is itself also a continuation of the apocalypse. This explains why its personality is endlessly cruel. This explains why it harbors a deep hatred for all life, driving its intent to annihilate the world. And this explains why it specializes in black magic. Black magic referring to the use of supernatural powers for malevolent purposes, typically caused to harm, manipulate others, or gain control over people or situations. That's why it has this move called Black Sabbath, where it recites a dark incantation in which it prays for a festival of death, and those who hear the spell soon die. The term Black Sabbath is really a dark term as it refers to witches' Sabbath. It is a term associated with the occult and witchcraft, often used to describe a gathering or ritual involving witches, typically in folklore, where practitioners of witchcraft engage in dark and forbidden activities. In fact, The term is often tied to meetings of witches happening at night where they worship demons or engage in acts considered heretical by religious authorities. Mephismon's name is referring to the demon Mephistopheles, which is a demon or devil figure that is typically depicted as a cunning, manipulative figure who represents evil, temptation, and the darker aspects of human nature. He originally appeared in literature as a demon in the Faust legend, and in that story, it was portrayed as a tempter and servant of Satan. Faust was a highly successful man who, despite all its accomplishments, was dissatisfied with his life. This led him to make a deal with Mephistopheles at a crossroads, exchanging his soul for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. In the early versions of the tale, Faust became irrevocably corrupt because of the deal he made and believed his sins couldn't ever be forgiven. That's why, when the term ended, Mephistopheles, the devil, carried him off to hell. So, there is already a lot that is making Mephismon satanic, and yet there is more. Have you paid close attention to its appearance? Its design draws a lot from Baphomet, and Baphomet, well, Baphomet is a symbolic figure that has often been associated with occultism and Satanism. In fact, we might even deem it the face of occultism. Its figure, meaning that of the humanoid with a goat's head, wings, and other symbolic elements, has roots in medieval mysticism and was first mentioned during the trial of the Knights Templar in the early 14th century, where it was alleged that the Templars worshipped a pagan idol named Baphomet. For your information, the Knights Templar was a French military order of the Catholic faith and one of the wealthiest and most popular military orders in Western Christianity. They were founded to defend pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem and existed for nearly 2 centuries during the Middle Ages. They were put on trial and some of them were burned at the stake for allegedly worshipping Baphomet, even if, as historians claim, their accusations were not based on truth. In modern times, in the Church of Satan, Baphomet was adopted as a key symbol, primarily for its embodiment of rebellion, individualism, and the rejection of conventional religious and moral systems. So, while Baphomet is itself not always directly associated with Satan in all contexts, its modern use in satanic iconography has led to its perception as a satanic symbol, hence why Mephismon has received the 5th spot. Interestingly, both Baphomet and Mephismon have the appearance of a goat, right? What you have to know about the goat is that this animal has been associated to the forbidden, to the dark, and to Satanism during the Middle Ages, especially in the context of the Inquisition and witch hunts, where the goat symbolized rebellion against the church. The goat's association with Satan also ties into broader themes of the wild, the untamed nature, and the idea of sin or temptation, seen in depictions like the biblical scapegoat, where the animal was symbolically burdened with the sins of others. That's why the goat evolved over time to be seen as the pet of Satan. I believe to have said all that has to be known about Mephismon in terms of its demonic and satanic roots. There's one last thing that did intrigue me though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the star sign on its chest is the Elder sign. It is a symbol that is a star with an eye inside and comes from the H.P. Lovecraft universe. It serves as protection against the outer gods who seem to fear the symbol. The outer gods are this group of unique, malignant beings of great power in the cosmology of the Cthulhu mythos. They reside in various locations on Earth and once presided over the planet as gods and rulers. The sign is interesting as some other Digimon are also sporting the same symbol. I doubt that it has the same significance in the Digimon universe as it has in the Cthulhu mythos, because I doubt that an entity as powerful as Mephismon would need protection. It would be the other way around. However, the symbol of a 5-pointed star returned quite often in Digimon, and sometimes it even appeared upside down, like on the next Digimon in this top list. At the 4th spot we have Daemon, a member of the 7 demon lords who wears the title of Hellfire of Chaos. That is because whenever it fights, it can attack with extremely high temperature flames that come from hell. Before even talking about its background, I'd like to first start with its appearance because there are so many demonic references. On its robe, you can find repeating patterns of golden eyes of providence. You may better know these eyes as the all-seeing eye. And the all-seeing eye has various meanings across different cultures and beliefs. It is most commonly associated with divine omniscience, where it represents God's watchful presence. However, in some conspiracy theories, the symbol has been linked to secret societies and even Satanism. Still on Daemon's robe, you can find the Elder sign, which was present on Mephismon's chest. However, the difference here is that the sign has been turned upside down to portray the inverted pentagram, a symbol that is also quite linked to Satan and the occult, as it now became a 5-pointed star with 2 points facing upward. These 2 points that are facing upwards refer to the horns of Satan, even if in most depictions of the inverted pentagram you will see Baphomet's horns. To continue with Daemon's appearance, it carries a silver rosary with a golden nazar in place of a crucifix. Remember what a nazar is? We talked about it when we discussed Lillithmon. Nazar means evil eye. Carrying it as an amulet should mean that you're going to be protected from the evil eye. However, as a demon lord, I am sure Daemon wants to curse whoever lays eye on it. And you know what? It doesn't really look like a coincidence that both Lillithmon and Daemon have something related to the evil eye. Both of them were high-ranking angels, which made their fall from grace even more dramatic, especially for Daemon. So let us take a look at its previous life. Daemon used to be a Seraphimon, one of the 3 celestial Digimon and the highest ranked being, said to be the closest to God. Its purpose is that of the enforcement of the enlightened God's laws. It executes God's laws, safeguards its wisdom, and imparts love and mercy. Seraphimon wields godlike power, and yet it has to maintain a neutral stance in worldly affairs. However, if the final battle were to come upon them, then it has the role of uniting all. That's why it rules over all angelic beings, as it is their leader. On its breech cloth is even written, "All with me," in the Digimon alphabet. To give you yet another insight of the holiness of Seraphimon, it has a move called 7 Heavens. It's a move where it fires 7 superheated spheres of light at the opponent. It's not a coincidence that it has this move, but you have to understand what it means. You see, just like in Purgatory, who exists of 7 terraces, the heaven is also divided in 7 terraces in various religious sources like Judaism, Islam, and even in Christianity to an extent. If we follow Digimon logic, it would probably be Seraphimon who would manage the entirety of the 7 heavens, or maybe it would manage a specific terrain. All of that only to tell you that it has this big responsibility and so many Digimon rely on it and look up to it. And yet, even such a grandiose Digimon can have its fall from grace, and this might be a fall that not many would have been able to predict. Let me tell you why. Seraphimon is wearing this holy armor that is in fact used to restrain its immense uncontrollable power and to conceal its true identity, which is hidden behind this mask. It should normally just focus on its task and that's about it. There's not much room left to do something else. However, even angels, at least in the context of Digimon, can develop critical thought and are thus susceptible to being swayed enough to change course. Seraphimon became a Shadow Seraphimon when its concealed inner resentment tumefied and engulfed it in darkness. Its 10 golden wings now became dark and bat-like purple. Its armor has also transformed ominously, and its techniques, well, It went from using the 7 heavens to now using the 7 hells in reference to the 7 terrains in purgatory. It now also gained a new technique where it sacrifices its mortal life to incinerate its enemies with hellfire. It's hard to tell why it became evil. Maybe it did not agree with how things did not change to bring more peace. Maybe it believed that it could do God's work better. We don't exactly know what caused it to become evil, but what is known though is that it raged in fury or rebellion against God. So it has been deleted from heavens and was banished to the dark area, where it became Daemon, otherwise named Creepymon or Cacodemon. And Cacodemon meaning an evil spirit or a demon. In psychology, the term cacodemonia has been derived from it, and it is a form of insanity in which the patient believes that they are possessed by an evil spirit. Unlike Lillithmon, who adopted a complete separate persona with different habits than Ophanimon, Daemon retained some of the habits of Seraphimon. Its face remained hidden and its identity was still concealed. From the calmness it shows, we can tell that it observes and knows how to show patience. It has to be patient though, as it is waiting for the right moment to take its revenge against God. You see, while being in the dark area, it has vowed to one day conquer the digital world, and it is going to do that by reviving the one who led the rebellion that caused Seraphimon to fall from grace and become a demon. We're going to talk about the one who led the rebellion in a moment. I'd like to first stop by Daemon's crest first, as it also has one. Its crest is based on the sigil of the Olympian spirit named Bethor, a spirit who commanded 29,000 legions of spirits, and his planet is that of Jupiter, which is the planet Daemon is also representing, hence why you can see the symbol of the planet on its crest. What you also learn from its crest is that Daemon is representing the sin of wrath. Now, wrath is often referred to as anger. It involves intense feelings of rage, fury, or hatred, which can lead to destructive actions or harm to others. Wrath goes beyond normal anger and becomes a consuming force that can cloud judgment, foster violence, and create lasting damage in relationships and communities. As the sole representative of the sin of wrath, it is of no surprise that Daemon has the Purgatory Level 3 written on its crest. It is a terrace where the wrathful souls are enveloped in a dense cloud of black smoke, representing the anger that once clouded their minds and blinded them in life. What shocked me most about Daemon's crest is that it shows that the demon it is based on is Satan. It is strange because Daemon has never been referred to as Satan. But it would mean that we already have 2 representatives of Satan. There is Daemon and SkullSatamon, who again represents but a husk of Satan, or a weakened version of Satan. This continues to show that the Digimon franchise really did put a whole lot of mystery behind Satan himself. It's almost as if they were showing glimpses of its powers without fully showing the being himself. And it will get even more confusing once we reach the end of the video, so what I suggest is that we stop with Daemon for now and discuss it later in the video. We have now come to the final 3 in the top 10 list. If you have made it this far, I salute you. I know it's a long video, but someone had to do it because otherwise there is simply so much information that the Digimon developers have given us that would go to waste, never to be discussed. Now, what made the next 3 Digimon reach the top 3 is their association with the beasts of Revelation. I mentioned one of them when talking about Belphemon, remember? To inform you, the 3 beasts in Revelation represent the biggest forces of evil and will come in the end times when we consider what was written about it in the Bible. Each beast represents a particular power. The beast who came from the sea is a symbol of a global system opposed to God. The beast who came from the earth, Belphemon being one of the incarnations, symbolize any force that compels people to conform to idolatry or to a system of control in opposition to God's will. Then there is the dragon, who is seen as a symbol of the corrupt and oppressive worldly powers that work against the people of God. These beasts have their own incarnation in the Digimon franchise. We're going to go over them now, starting with the Digimon who reached the third spot, which is Ogudomon, the Super Demon Lord. To better understand this Digimon, it is best that we go straight to its name and interpret what it truly means. Ogudomon's name came from the word Ogdode. It is a word that has been put in various contexts, however it has usually always something to do with the number 8. In the earliest versions of Gnosticism, theories taught that there were 7 heavens and a super-celestial region called the Ogdode, which would be the 8th sphere. In Egyptian mythology, the Ogdode referred to a group of 8 primordial deities particularly associated with creation. These gods represented the initial forces of chaos and water from which the world was created. Because the term Ogdode has been placed in various schools of thought, it is said that the term is ever evolving while still being linked to the number 8. And the term has in some capacity also evolved with Ogudomon, who has its own background story. You see, Ogudomon is the fusion of all 7 demon lords, making of itself the 8th member. It possesses 7 legs, each featuring an eye, and his legs embody a different sin. That's why Ogudomon became the representation of the whole of the digital world's sins, and moreover, it became this mysterious incarnation with the ability to atone for them all. That's how it gained the title of Super Demon Lord of Atonement. As long as a Digimon has but a small amount of malice in itself, it would make it basically impossible to defeat Ogudomon. It would utilize its 8th eye, which you can find on its body, to neutralize the power of any Digimon with malice. Reason why it has gained the 3rd spot on the list is because it was based on the first beast of Revelation, meaning the beast from the sea, who is often interpreted as representing a powerful, oppressive, political or imperial force. The beast from the sea is associated with tyranny and blasphemy. It is depicted as having 10 horns and 7 heads, symbolizing great authority and power. And Ogudomon's power once became so great that it even reached the power of God and came extremely close to have the digital world collapse in its entirety. Good and evil Digimon preferred to even collaborate just to make sure they would be able to take it down, knowing that all forms of life would cease if Ogudomon were to remain alive. I'm not going to get into the details of that story, however, I'm going to put the link towards the Explaining DIABOROMON X video in the description box. In that video, I went in depth in the analysis of Ogudomon's origins and how powerful it became. So, if you haven't seen that video yet, I would say that it is a must watch. There is further proof that Ogudomon is based on the first beast of Revelation. For that, I'll have to show you some verses from the Bible that actually talks about the second beast while also making reference to the first beast. So let me read a couple of quotes from Revelation. Here I quote, "Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose fatal wound had been healed." Unquote. Now, this quote tells that the first beast, meaning the beast of the sea, which in Digimon's case means Ogudomon, had been fatally wounded even if it healed. But what caused it to get wounded? Let me continue to quote from Revelation. Here I quote, "It," meaning the second beast, "ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived." Unquote. This means that the first beast was wounded by a sword. If we get back to Ogudomon and you look carefully at its body, you will see that it has swords pierced through the many knees it has. It's not that these swords have wounded it. In fact, these swords are yet another representation of the 7 demon lords as they contain all of their abilities. We also talked briefly about the swords in the Explaining DIABOROMON X video. I shared the verse from Revelation to make you understand that it isn't a coincidence that Ogudomon has swords pierced through its knees. The developers have been very smart with that detail, and it would easily have gone overlooked because, again, it's not always that we take the initiative to really get into the details of the background of some Digimon. I had to put Ogudomon this high in the list because, again, it represents a force that is beyond demonic. Do not forget that in terms of evil, the beasts of Revelation might be considered more widely destructive and globally corrupt, as they represent powers that will influence nations and the world at large during the end times. Demons, on the other hand, represent the more subtle, insidious aspect of evil, working in the background to corrupt individuals and draw them away from God. As the representative of the beast from the sea, it means that Ogudomon is the Antichrist. It means that it is this figure often described as a deceptive and evil leader who will emerge before the end of the world. In biblical texts, particularly in the New Testament, the Antichrist is portrayed as someone who opposes Christ, someone who deceived many and brought about a period of suffering and chaos. Considering the chaos Ogudomon had brought once it was summoned in its X-enhanced version, I think it is quite understandable why it would be categorized as the Antichrist. The third spot is definitely well deserved. Now, Ogudomon is the first beast of Revelation. We're now going to go to the second beast of Revelation. At the second spot we have Myotismon, the king of undead Digimon that was resurrected by dark arts. While it isn't part of your typical 7 demon lords, you'd be surprised how demonic this Digimon is, especially when we make a deep dive into its true origins. The Digimon developers weren't even that subtle with some references. However, you'd need to have some background in Christianity mostly to truly understand the entirety of this Digimon. That's why we're going to analyze 3 of its versions. We're going to discuss Myotismon itself, who is at the ultimate level, then its mega-level form Venom Myotismon, and its other mega-level form Mellow Myotismon. Now, when looking at Myotismon's appearance, you will see a Digimon who is dressed elegantly like a gentleman, and its looks and mannerisms are styled after a vampire. That's why it wouldn't be much of a surprise if some of you would believe that it was based on vampires of the likes of Dracula. However, that is the whole ruse behind the character. You just have to look at its name to understand what the Digimon truly represents. It has 2 names. Myotismon is the first, and we are going to get into its significance in a moment. Its second name is Vamdemon, with Vamde being a combination of vampire and demon, meaning that Myotismon is a demon even if it does not have the looks. It doesn't have wings, it doesn't have anything resembling a demon, but it effectively is one. And you would be surprised what demon it embodies. Let me show you a comment I found online who gave us so much about Myotismon and the context in which it operated. Here I quote, "Something I realized watching the original Digimon adventure. The entire first adventure series is essentially based off of Revelation from the Bible. Devimon and Angelmon's fight is Michael defeating the devil. Myotismon is essentially the Antichrist and becomes the beast after being indwelt by the devil, Devimon." Unquote. Myotismon and its story have been associated to the biblical Revelation, but specifically as the second beast of Revelation. In Revelation, it is written that the second beast is often seen as a false prophet or religious figure who works in conjunction with the first beast, deceiving people and leading them into idolatry. It enforces worship of the first beast and promotes the mark of the beast, symbolizing submission to evil powers. Now, Myotismon, who represents the second beast, made its debut in the year 1999, while Ogudomon, who represents the first beast, made its debut in 2007. So, Myotismon couldn't really have worked for Ogudomon as they were not created at the same time, and as far as I can tell, the Digimon developers did not really link their stories. So the quote from Revelation concerning the second beast doesn't apply entirely to it. However, when we consider the other information from the quote, then Myotismon is not only the second beast but also a false prophet who is often seen as a deceptive religious leader who misleads people into worshipping the Antichrist. So, we're going to discuss some key aspects of the second beast and put Myotismon next to it. In the story of Revelation was revealed that the second beast performed great signs and miracles in order to deceive people. And Myotismon has a whole list of what it has done to deceive friends, if you could call them as such, and foe. It went from betraying to outright abuse and torture. The deception wasn't only based on its mere direct actions towards others, its appearance is also part of the ruse. When looking at Myotismon, we see a Digimon who looks rather civil, with proper manners. However, it possesses an extremely cruel and cunning personality, just like a demon. So many would end up being deceived by it, because it's hard to predict darkness coming from someone who looks classy. And this appearance of a vampire is not even its true form, far from it. The deception is very ingenious. You see, in Digimon Adventure, Myotismon had gotten itself defeated by the Digidestined. However, it was not yet truly gone. And so, an email was received which detailed an ancient prophecy which told about its resurrection. Here I quote, "The sky will be darkened by the wings of many bats. The fallen people will invoke the name of the undead Digimon King. And when the clock strikes the hour of the beast, the undead king will reveal himself in his true form as the beast. Then angels will shoot arrows of hope and light at the loved ones of those they have been sent to protect, and a miracle will happen." Unquote. This form the prophecy is talking about is that of Venom Myotismon, who would reveal itself at exactly 6 seconds and 6 minutes past 6. In other words, 666, the number of the beast, or in this case, the time of the beast. Venom Myotismon is how Myotismon really looks like. All the gentlemanly conduct, reason and intelligence it once had is vanished in this form, as priority was given only to its hidden power and omnicidal destructive impulses. And you know what? Even this form isn't its true form either. The real Venom Myotismon can be found inside its groin, which is a round, dark grey furred being with short arms and a toothless mouth. So, it is deception after deception. Remember when we talked about Belphemon, who is also based on the second beast of Revelation? Well, in the Bible was written that the second beast had 2 horns like a lamb. Venom Myotismon does not have those types of horns. However, it still does have 2 horns, meaning that the biblical description of the second beast is starting to apply little by little. Reason why it does not have an appearance similar to that of Belphemon, at least when we consider the horns, is because Venom Myotismon draws its appearance from the locusts that are controlled by the mythological Abaddon, the angel of the abyss. In Revelation verse 9 till 11, the following was written. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces, their hair like women's hair, and their teeth like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the noise of their wings was like the noise of the many chariots with horses rushing into battle. They have tails and stings like scorpions, and their power to hurt people for 5 months is in their tails. Unquote. So the Bible described Abaddon's locusts as having human faces, women's hair, breastplates made of iron, wings, and the tail of a scorpion. Venom Myotismon fits this description entirely. It has long blonde hairs, which is typically associated to women. It also has the face of a human. While it does not have breastplates made of iron, it does have the exoskeleton of an insect, which, from what I can tell, might be that of a locust. It is said that a locust's exoskeleton strength has been shown to help resist damage from forces as high as 100 times its body weight. So it's quite strong. Maybe not as strong as, let's say, a breastplate, but then again, Venom Myotismon is a huge Digimon and size does matter in this context. The locust's description in Revelation also tells that they have wings and the tail of a scorpion, all of which can be found on Venom Myotismon, explaining why it does look quite different than Belphemon, despite both being derived from the second beast. The difference came from the fact that Venom Myotismon is not just a demon, but also a vampire and probably also an insect. In our case, it would likely be a locust. There is another very important proof that Venom Myotismon is the second beast and thus the false prophet from Revelation. When we discussed Belphemon, we mentioned the mark of the beast, right? I'm talking about the number 666 that is often associated with the end times and is often interpreted as a symbol of allegiance to the Antichrist. The mark was meant to be placed on the right hand or forehead of individuals. The second beast of Revelation is responsible for the specific enforcement of the mark, ensuring that no one can engage in commerce without it. What I'm going to say has not been confirmed, however, the proof is more than obvious. There is what is known as the mark of evil, which you saw on Belphemon's chest and Lillithmon's forehead. There are many other Digimon who also have the mark somewhere on their body, which usually is on a Digimon's forehead and sometimes also on its hands and feet. The mark of evil is a mark in the form of a stylized bat's silhouette and can be found on evil Digimon that are cruel and merciless and do anything to achieve their desires. I am convinced that it isn't a coincidence that the mark of evil, which can be seen as the mark of the beast, has the form of a bat silhouette. Myotismon is probably the only Digimon who is this involved with bats. In fact, the name Myotismon is a reference to the greater mouse-eared bat. I would believe that the mark of evil is in reference to the mark of the beast, and the way it is spread on many Digimon while looking like the silhouette of a bat means that it is probably Myotismon's mark that is being spread. As Myotismon is itself evil by nature, and those Digimon who carry the mark of evil are also evil by nature, I'd say that Myotismon does have some, if not a total control of their actions, thoughts, and ultimately their souls. And that is the whole point behind the mark of the beast. In Revelation chapter 13 verse 16 till 17, the following was written. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Unquote. This is but one of the many proofs that Myotismon truly is the second beast of Revelation and deserves to have reached the second spot on this list for symbolizing such an immense evil. Now, I believe to have said the most important background story for Venom Myotismon, but there is yet its other variant that we have to discuss, which is Mellow Myotismon. For your information, the difference between both Venom Myotismon and Mellow Myotismon is that the latter had decided to harmonize its intelligence alongside all of its other aspects. That's how it succeeded in surpassing Venom Myotismon, which lost its intelligence by seeking too much power and was more like a beast. Mellow Myotismon is itself also associated to subjects that are deemed demonic and sinful. For example, take the living jaw-like artillery cannons on both its left and right shoulders. These are named Sodom and Gomorrah respectively. These are the names of two cities that were destroyed by God for their wickedness. You can find the story in both the Quran and the Bible. Both cities have been used historically and in modern discourse as metaphors for homosexuality, which is seen as a sin in Christianity, Islam, and other schools of thought. Mellow Myotismon's second name is that of Belial Vamdemon, with Belial being a reference to a powerful demon or fallen angel associated with lawlessness and deceit. Some sources describe him as one of the oldest and most influential demons, often linked to corruption and chaos. Remember when we discussed the Satanic Bible, which is divided into 4 main sections, each named after a demonic entity? Well, Belial has its own book. This means that we have SkullSatamon and Daemon, who are among those who represent the Book of Satan. More on that when we come at the first Digimon in the list. Leviamon represents the Book of Leviathan, which contains invocations and rituals emphasizing the power of words and emotions in magic. It includes satanic rituals such as the Destruction Ritual, Lust Ritual, and Compassion Ritual. With Belial we can look at the Book of Belial, which focuses on ritual magic and the use of ceremonies to channel emotions and desires. It explains how symbolic rituals can help achieve psychological and personal goals. The 4th book is the Book of Lucifer, a book we're going to discuss by first going over the Digimon who has reached the top spot in this list. The first spot was given to Lucemon, a rookie-level angel with the appearance of a child. Yet, while being a child, it has power and intelligence that surpasses even that of ultimate-level Digimon. Like Ophinemon and Seraphimon, its story is just as tragic. In fact, even more so, as Lucemon certainly is the most powerful angel in existence. Its powers are so divine that it became capable of establishing order in the digital world back when the world was plagued by chaos. It brought about order and harmony. However, something snapped inside its mind. You see, Lucemon, initially a peacebringer in the digital world, rebelled after realizing its power could rival the gods. This led to a long period of darkness as Lucemon aimed to obliterate the existing world and establish a new one. This might have come to the surprise of many when looking at its appearance, but we have learned from Myotismon already that looks can be quite deceiving. Lucemon's youthful appearance masks a cruel, self-serving character who believes the digital world exists solely for its dominion. This stark contrast between its innocent appearance and ruthless nature underscores its deceptive character. And you know what? It does have symbols on its body which, once interpreted, explains how it went to the dark route. On its right hand, it has the symbol of the 0 unit. It is a mysterious symbol that is often identified with the mythological Keter of the Sephiroth. To briefly tell you what is meant with the Keter, it comes from the Hebrew word crown. The Keter is the highest of the 10 Sephiroth in the Kabbalistic tree of life. It represents the divine will and the source of all creation, symbolizing the unmanifested, infinite aspect of God before anything takes form. Keter is associated with pure potential, infinite light, and unity with the divine. As the 0 unit represents the Keter, it explains why Lucemon's divinity is even much greater than that of Seraphimon. It is a sign of the immense potential and potential power output it has. However, when you look at its left hand, you can see the digital hazard symbol. The presence of this symbol means that the Digimon has the potential to be highly destructive and, if corrupted, could threaten the very existence of both the digital world and the human world. So, to have the combination of the 0 unit symbol and the digital hazard symbol tells that Lucemon can do very good or very bad. To top it off, it is wearing not 1 but 4 holy rings, 2 on its wrists and 2 on its ankles. We made a separate video about the holy ring, we'll put the link towards it in the description box, but suffice it to say that a ring gives a Digimon greater power relative to their holiness. Rookie level Lucemon has 4 of them, and it is said that its powers reaches and in some cases surpasses ultimate level Digimon, while Mega level angel Seraphimon, who is known as the number 1 angel, has no holy ring. This explains why Lucemon, who is so divine and so powerful, went to the dark side. its powers became too much for the child it is, and so it had gotten itself corrupted into believing that it was as powerful, if not more powerful than God. In the period of chaos it had brought, many Digimon rallied to its cause. Some members of the 7 Demon Lords, for example, were ever present, as some among them already were in a quest for revenge against God. They would all be defeated by a group known as the 10 Legendary Warriors, who decided to confront Lucemon and seal it. While the sealing was a success, with Lucemon being sent to the Dark Area afterwards, 8 of those warriors did in fact perish. The sealing probably meant that Lucemon could not do much in the Dark Area. It was confined and imprisoned in what essentially already is a prison. And Daemon plotted to secretly revive it, which would eventually happen. However, Lucemon would end up digivolving because of its arrogance. That's how it would become Lucemon Fall Down Mode, a fallen angel Digimon at the ultimate level, not the mega level, and one who possesses both the divine and the diabolical. And that is how it officially became a member of the 7 Demon Lords. In fact, it became the most potent member of the group. We're going to get to what makes it so satanic in a moment. For now, what we're going to do is analyze its crest and extract all the information we can gain from it. Its crest is based on the sigil of the Olympian spirit called Og. He rules 28 provinces and represents the sun, whose symbol can be seen in Lucemon's crest at the upper half of the circle. And Lucemon's association to the sun underlines its superior strength, which is so vast that it annihilates all moons, which it also did. In Digimon Frontier, it had destroyed a yellow moon in a spectacular explosion. The debris from its destruction subsequently destroyed the other moons. We can read from Lucemon's crest that it represents the sin of pride. It is a sin often seen as the excessive belief in one's own abilities, accomplishments, or importance, which leads to a disregard for others and, most importantly, for God. It is considered one of the 7 deadly sins because it distorts the relationship between humans and God, making people think that they can be self-sufficient and don't need divine guidance. Pride is often considered to be the biggest of the 7 deadly sins because it is seen as the root of all other sins. That's why Lucemon has been linked to Purgatory Level 1, which is a terrace filled with souls who are prideful in their earthly lives. The terrace walls are decorated with sculptures that depict scenes of humility, which is the opposite of pride. However, the prideful never get a chance to see these sculptures, as they are forced to carry immense weights on their backs, which bends them forward as a form of penance. As you can hear from Lucemon's name, and as shown on its crest, Lucemon is based on Lucifer, originally a high-ranking and beautiful angel, who was created by God as a powerful and perfect being. But it became prideful and sought to overthrow God, desiring to be equal or greater than the Almighty. This led to Lucifer's fall from grace, as he had been cast down from heavens because of his pride. This event is traditionally linked with the origin of Satan, who is the leader of fallen angels and who became the adversary of God and humanity. But remember, as we have said before with SkullSatamon and Daemon, both Lucifer and Satan have also been seen as separate beings altogether with no real history linking them. For example, the Satanic Bible did make a distinction between the two by giving them their own chapter. The Book of Satan served as a rejection of traditional religious and moral values, particularly those of Christianity. It advocates for individualism, self-determination, and the pursuit of personal desires. It emphasizes the idea that people should embrace their own nature rather than suppress it for the sake of an external moral code. Then there is the Book of Lucifer, which focuses on Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment, knowledge, and personal freedom. It challenges the idea of sin and presents Lucifer not as a malevolent figure, but as a metaphor for defiance against tyranny and the pursuit of self-improvement. The Book of Lucifer encourages intellectual growth and self-awareness using Lucifer as an archetype of rebellion and self-liberation. While Lucifer and Satan are sometimes seen as separate beings and sometimes seen as the same, the Digimon developers took the confusion literally by giving us some Digimon who are representatives of Satan in their own way. SkullSatamon appears more like a husk of Satan. Daemon appears to have its nature that is based on Satan. That is why we consider the information written on its crest. And then there is Lucemon. But for that, I'll have to give you a bit more context. Remember how Beelzemon and Seraphimon have these fall-down modes before they reach their final darkened versions, meaning Lillithmon and Daemon? Well, Lucemon has exactly the same. It goes from Lucemon in its childlike appearance to Lucemon in its fall-down mode, which will ultimately make it digivolve into Lucemon in its Satan mode. This form represents the complete fall of Lucifer into Satan by taking inspiration from the Dragon of Revelation, which is also said to be Satan. Revelation chapter 12 verse 9 says the following: "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him." Unquote. Lucemon in this form is meant to represent the final evil. It is a form it gained after having absorbed the dark area, after having absorbed hell, and everything that found itself inside. That's why the crests of all demon lords can be found hovering upon its head. Normally all the evil we have talked about, meaning Baphomet and its sigil, the number 666, the two other beasts of Revelation, Occultism and all of that, should be all centered around Satan, meaning that they should in theory be based on Lucemon's Satan mode, who is the most satanic Digimon in existence. That's what made it reach the first spot in this long top list. It doesn't need to have the mark of the beast or a reversed star symbol to reach the top spot, because again, all evil or most evil is based around this entity. Lucemon is meant to be Satan, or I could say that it represents Satan the best. I say that it is the best representation because, as I have said quite a few times on this channel, when we follow Digimon logic and actually look back at SkullSatamon, who is at the ultimate level and represents a weakened version of Satan, after it fell from grace, it should normally have gotten its own mega level form, which I suspect would have been called Satanmon. It would have become the literal Digimon version of Satan. Not a representation of its nature like Daemon, and not in a mode change like Lucemon in its Satan mode, but really Satan in the Digimon flesh. However, the Digimon developers have only stopped with SkullSatamon and didn't give it more, unfortunately. That's why Lucemon had gotten the first place, because it is a Digimon representation of the first beast in Revelation, which is a dragon, and this dragon was said to be Satan. Hello my good friends, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that I went really far on this one, but I have warned you guys in all my previous videos, if not in most of my previous videos, that I was going to go deep in Digimon lore at some point, and here we are. This is a video, by the way, that I've always wanted to make, because otherwise there is so much that goes overlooked, so many great details and secret messages that no one would really pay attention to. And you know what? Digimon doesn't always get this in-depth analysis, and I try to take my role as a Digimon YouTuber seriously. I want you, and especially newcomers, to get as much information as possible to truly understand this amazing franchise. This reminds me, there's something I have not said yet. Most of these Digimon we have discussed in this top 10 list are inspired by demons who once were fallen angels. Same goes for Leviamon, who is based on the Leviathan. In some depiction, the Leviathan is a sea creature, but in other depictions, it is an actual angel. That's why all 7 demon lords have wings. Leviamon would end up getting its wings once it X evolves into Leviamon X. So it all made full circle, didn't it? gosh, I love making those videos. And seriously, I have so many top 10 videos I have in stock that I would love to make. There are many Egyptian type Digimon, there are many Greek type Digimon. You can certainly expect more top 10 lists on this channel, so I highly suggest that you subscribe to not miss out, and don't worry, the lists will not always be this long. And you know what? If you want me to make a particular top 10 list, make sure to write your thoughts in the comment section. That way, when I have time, I can go over it, and you know what, if you want me to go as detailed once more, you just let me know and I'll give you the full sauce. Just know that all the top 10 videos are placed in the top 10 playlist, which is always updated. That way you can easily catch up on the newer and older videos. Anyway, what do you guys have to say about this list? You don't need to agree, but at least be so kind to share your own lists in the comment section. Be as elaborate as possible. Once more guys, please don't forget to subscribe, it would mean the world for me, and I'm glad I prayed for you guys because it's a hard subject and I really couldn't do that without praying for us. So yeah, I will see you all in the next video.